Hey everybody, it's me, Scott from Heroic Studios Gaming, coming at you once again with another video. How are you doing? Yeah. Welcome to my RPG Corner, where I talk about RPGs. I give them reviews and kind of talk about the playthrough of them, kind of talk about my experience with them. Some of them I have played a lot before, so I can talk about them a lot. Some of them are foundational to my understanding of how games work, and some of them are games that I wish I could play, but haven't actually yet played. I really don't like reviewing games that I haven't actually played, but I got to play around with some things related to this one for today, though I haven't actually played it yet, so we'll see if I can ever get a chance to play it. Today I'm talking about Twilight 2000 by Fria Ligan. This would be the 4th edition, so Twilight 2000, 4th edition, but there's a tagline that goes with this one. It goes, role-playing in the World War III that never was. So this game was created by Fria Ligan, but this is an update to the Twilight 2000 game system that's been around since 1984. It's a game that sort of takes place in Europe at the fall of the world, essentially, where the Soviet Union and the United States sort of clash, and it sort of creates World War III, right? Coming out in 1984, that was totally fine, but obviously in 1989, we know that the Berlin Wall fell, and thus sort of ended the sort of reign of the Cold War for the most part, and then, we had some changes, and then you had Gorbachev and his openness policies and things like that. We all know the history of the fall of the Soviet Union. If you don't know the fall of USSR, go look it up. It's history. Just go look it up. I'm sure there are YouTube videos you can watch, but that's not the point. The point is that when this game was made, that was a thing that was a distinct possibility, and people were still kind of worried about World War III and this sort of thermonuclear war, mutual sure destruction business. We still kind of have that mutual assured destruction fear, but it's not quite the same as it was in 1984. So the game made sense when it came out, but has made changes over time, and now this 4th edition was actually just kickstarted in 2021, so this is a relatively new game, and it's been updated to match the more modern style of gaming versus the crunchy style of gaming that used to exist before. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my history with Twilight 2000. Whenever I tried to look into it when I was, younger or earlier on in my gaming stuff, it was always sort of touted as an old person's game, one of those games that was out in the 80s that no one ever plays anymore and is really crunchy and is really confusing and convoluted and hard to follow. I think that assessment actually matches more of the Morrow Project, which has been I tried to look into stuff for the Morrow Project, and it's kind of rough to read even their adventure modules. Twilight 2000 is bad. It's not super great, but this version of it is much better than the older stuff that I've seen before. But it was sort of not really a thing that my friends ever wanted to play, and to be fair, it really is sort of playing military characters during sort of World War III. It's sort of presented as this post-apocalyptic idea because the U.S. has kind of lost its push to try to get the Soviet Union out. So the soldiers and the civilians that are in these war-torn areas are sort of stuck in this Soviet Union's probably going to win, but even the Soviet Union's sort of collapsing. So it's this world economic collapse thing is happening right now around us, and we're all sort of stuck in it. And so it's kind of post-apocalyptic, but it's not really post-apocalyptic. It's more like World War III. And this is to be honest, not a lot of my friends want to play that. In fact, I had to drag them into the post-apocalyptic world, but I love it, so it's fine. But I decided to back this because I was interested in what Fria Ligan would do to it, and I was not disappointed. So, firstly, in that box that I just showed you, I'll pull it up again. Whoa! In this box, there's a bunch of stuff, and it comes with actually quite a bit of things. First, it comes with, you've got your player's manual right here. I've got some notes and character sheets in there. There's a player's manual, and then it comes with the referee manual, which honestly is, I wouldn't say it's necessary. I don't know. It was okay. It had some cool ideas in it, and definitely, if you're going to run some Twilight 2000, it definitely had helpful hints, but it wasn't as great as I was hoping it was based on the player's manual, which was pretty great. So I was kind of disappointed in that, but that's fine. Then it comes with 2 adventures, and it comes with a bunch of battle maps that you can either assemble however you want, but it does have 2 battle maps specifically related to the 2 adventures it comes with. And then it's got a bunch of the cardboard punch-out token things, and then it's got cards. So there's initiative cards, and I'll explain that in a second with the update that they did to the game. And then they also have the encounter cards, which I think is actually probably worth most of the value of the box set anyway. These are encounter cards, and they're random encounters that you can draw for people to encounter when they're on the road. So this game is a lot of traveling around, and I'll talk about that in a moment when I talk about the gameplay. But there's a lot of traveling around, and so when you're traveling around, you might run into a forest fire or something else, and it sort of tells you how to respond to that. It also gives you some clues as to whether or not you can trigger that. So you see right there, there's like all these little icons. Those mean things, and so it's like, it's a thing that you should know, and sort of like it occurs during the daytime when you're off-road, like that kind of business. So yeah, it's got these cool little triggers, which is really great for like sort of deciding to throw random encounters at your people. If it doesn't match, if it gets in the middle of the night and they're off-road, for example, you're not really going to use an encounter that's supposed to happen during the day, right? So it's actually really helpful. You just skip that and you just move on and let them sleep. It's really helpful. But then it also comes with dice, and it's got a bunch of dice. It's got it's got 2d12s, it's got 2d8s. I'll just show you that right here. It's got 2d10s, which I have one right here, and then it's got a bunch of d6s. It's got 2 for the gaming stuff, and then it's got a bunch of them that are like this, which are your ammo dice for ammo dice stuff. So if you're familiar with free leagues, and I think I've talked about them before, but if you're familiar with Fria Ligan, or free leagues, their game system, a lot of their game systems is primarily based on the Mutant Year Zero, the Zero engine is what they call it. And this game was kind of simplified to be closer to that. It is not the Mutant Year Zero, the Zero engine. It is not that system. So if you're thinking that this is going to be just like Forbidden Lands or Alien or something like that, it is not. It is its own thing, but I actually like it. So they tried to take these complex rules from previous versions of Twilight 2000 and turn them into more modern, softer, easier to understand rules, and I think they did a pretty good job. They do have a conversion guide in the back of the referee manual, so you can take all your old Twilight 2000 stuff and sort of convert it to the new stuff, but essentially they like slimmed down the attributes and the skills to being just a couple. There's only 12 skills, and it's based on the 4 attributes, so you have your 4 attributes, your 4 stats, and then you have the 3 skills related to them. So like under strength, for example, there's like close combat, stamina, and I forget what else. I could probably look at a character sheet and tell you. Boom. There we go. It's heavy weapons, close combat, stamina, and agility has driving, mobility, and ranged combat. Intelligence has recon, survival, and tech, and then empathy has command, persuasion, and medical aid. So they sort of condense things into being like a lot more tighter, and then they you have special abilities, and then they were like, this is your damage, and this is your stress, and they're derivative of like the capacities you have are derivative of those stats. So they took the old sort of stuff, the grading system that used to exist in Twilight 2000, which if you're not familiar, that's fine, I'm going to talk about it, where they sort of grade all of the attributes and skills based on like assuming this was like a military assessment, right? And so you have a grade of A through F for your skills and A through D for your stats, because you're not going to have F in a stat. F is 0 dice. And so you'll never have an F in your stat, but you will have a D in your stat. And the way that these stat assessments go is they're based on the type of die that you will use, with D12 being the highest die and D6 being the lowest die, hence the D being the lowest for stats. You cannot have no stat, right? That's the point. So if you're going to have it, so you'll go D, right, going up. So D is a D6. Then you're going to go C is a D8, yeah, and then B is a D10, and then D would be a D, or A would be a D12, right? So that's the assessment. That's how you do it. So if you're gonna have a D12 for your highest types of stats, and then what you do whenever you're gonna do an action, whenever you take an action, you're gonna take your whatever the die number is for the stat. So let's say it's the D12. Whoops, that's a D10. Say it's a D12, so you get a D12, and then you're going to take the dice that's related to your skill. So say your close combat skill is a B, so you're going to have a D10. So you're going to try to roll this. You're going to roll the D10 and the D12 to try to do the action. And the way they've got it set is very much similar to the Mutant Year Zero engine stuff, where you have to get a 6 in order to succeed, and any 6s is considered a success. Same business here. So I'm rolling this D12 and the D10. I have to get a 6 or above to succeed on my action, and I only need 1 of those to be a success to succeed in my action. Any additional stuff just adds flourish or extra damage or extra protection or something else. It's just a flourishy additional success that is unnecessary but useful. And that's how they do That's at its core the whole game. That's the simplicity of the new system. The only difference that they change is because you're aiming for 6s in the system, and I'm rolling a d10 and a d12. Anytime you roll the top number, anytime you roll above a 10, so a 10 in this die, right, it's the 10, you see there's 2 of these sort of hit marks, and then the same here, the 10 to 12, 10, 11, or 12, you got 2 hit marks. Anytime you roll a 10 or above, you get 2 successes. So if I were to roll both of these and just have at least, and they're both over 6, then I have succeeded in my action. But then, like, I might have additional successes, and that might mean that I get to do more damage. Or in the case of the ammo, if I get a 6 on the ammo die, that means I do a second bit of damage because I hit with a second bullet. That kind of thing. So there's like additional stuff that goes with that, right? So that's how that works. That's the whole game system in a nutshell. That's all of it. So all of the fear that you might have, like thinking that this is an old crunchy system from the 80s, should just go away, because that's basically it. The only difference is that, or the only complex thing is that when you go to do attacks and stuff, you do have to roll a random hit die to determine where on the body you hit, and that affects whether the armor comes into play, because if you're not wearing a helmet and you get shot in the head, for example, that's going to be vastly different than if you hit somebody in the arm and they have, full body armor on or something like that. So that it's not very complex at all at its core, and it's really simple. I was really impressed. There's actually a Twilight 2000 Facebook group that I'm part of, and somebody posted this image that they made of like the combat flow, and it was this really long, very convoluted looking chain of events, and like a lot of people were like, they freaked out about it. Like they were like, because it was like right when the box set was getting shipped out to everybody, or right before, and so like lots of people, because it was based on the PDF, and like lots of people were like going like, oh my god, I don't even want to try now, this looks scary. And that was probably the worst thing to do, because when I actually finally like sat down to read the book, I was like, oh, this is not bad at all. It's like, judge like any modifiers that might affect the dice roll, and then roll the dice. It's really that simple. Because there is one flexy thing that does happen. Instead of adding an additional modifier like a +1 or +2 or a -1 or -2 to your dice, what it actually does is it actually bumps the die up or down. That's not hard to understand if you play other games where things like that might happen. So if, for example, I normally would roll a d10 for my ranged combat, right, and I'm shooting my rifle, but it's smoky and really hard to see my target, well, that's going to bump me down to the d8. So I'm going to roll a d8 instead of the d10. And it's that simple. That's not too complex. That's a little complex, but not really. If you're used to systems where bumping dice up and down is a thing, then great. I mean, they could have just did a modifier like a -1 or +1, but they decided to do this instead. So that's the whole system. So I can automatically tell you that that's okay with me. It's not very complex, so I am already attracted to the new version of Twilight 2000. The only problem is like the war setting. I got to convince a bunch of friends to play in World War III, right? And right now with the thing happening in going on in Ukraine and Russia, I'm not necessarily sure anyone really, or maybe people do. Maybe people are really involved. Maybe they do want to play this game because of what's going on right now. But I'm not going to get into that. What I'm going to say is that the other thing I usually talk about this is the organization of the book. The organization of the book, the player's manual, is amazing. It is something that, like, when I saw it, I was like, this is how a book should be organized. And it's very similar, I will admit, it is very similar to the way that we decided to organize the Maximum Apocalypse RPG book. So, I mean, I'm already, like, a little fuzzy and, like, warm inside. But I also didn't come up with that myself. I had some help from my friends, and I had some other examples of other books that were organized this way. And so, like, it is a good way to organize books. So I'm not saying it was mine. I'm just saying I feel the warm and tinglies inside because it's similar to the way that I did. So I'm like, yes, someone else who knows how to organize a book. But it starts off with like the basics on how to play the game. Well, it starts off with the basics of like, what is this game? And then it's like, what are you trying to do with this game? And then it's like, here's the setting, real brief. We're going to do like 3 paragraphs or 5 paragraphs of like the setting and like what we mean by the world war that never was. And then we're going to like break down like what you're going to need to play this game. Like you're going to need a group of friends, you're going to need these dice, and we'll explain those later, but you're going to need these dice to play this game. Whenever we ask you to make a roll, it's going to be one of these dice. Super, super important to do right within the first like 10 pages. And then it was like, you're going to just want to have these things. And it does clarify that this game does use hex. It is a hex scrawl game. which kind of disappointed me a little bit because a lot of the rules are built around the hexes and moving through hexes or shooting through hexes or whatever alls. And I am very much a theater of the mind player, so I was a little disappointed because anytime I was like, well, what do I do if I don't have hexes? I know you gave me battle maps, but let's say I'm not going to use them because I don't use battle maps. What do I do? It just goes like, your referee will be the arbiter, right? That's all it says. So it's really kind of loosey-goosey as to like distances, which I think is one of the reasons why the earlier Twilight 2000 was a little bit complex for people, because distances and things like the distances and the strength of like the thing you're trying to hit affected whether or not you could actually do it. Like, can I shoot the engine block with my rifle from like if it's a mile away, right? And that was like a complex little system of like calculations and things, and it was very much simulated to like actually trying to do that in reality, like a sniper shot and how it actually works. They took all that away, but they're like, but you have these hexes that affect things, but then they're like, but maybe you're not going to play with hexes, in which case, I don't know, figure it out. And so that's a little disappointing because I was like, well, how fast can something move? And it's like, it moves 3 hexes around, and I'm like, okay, but how fast is that, right? Like, so it was that's a little bit of a problem. So the pro is that it's really well organized. The con is that it's organized in a way that isn't really conducive if you're not playing it the way they want you to. But that's fine. So it is well organized though, and it has some like cool art that sort of invokes like the older styles of art that you would probably see in the older books. And it uses a lot of cool, like the stuff that you see in Alien RPG as well for like the major spreads. So like in Alien, there was this kind of stuff where it was like semi not really focused in kind of artistic versions of realistic situations. So we have that kind of stuff. But I liked it. I mean, I was impressed with it. It was really fun to like look at the art as I was going through. So I give it 1 thumb up for its organization and its art, and its charts are well placed and like really easily understood. So they did a great job with the charts. So if you're trying to go search for your gear and stuff, it is easy to find. Now, the real thing that made me really like this game, the real like pro to it, was the character creation system was super fun. There's also a thing, about crafting and stuff, and I'll try to get into that, but I'm already at 17 minutes. So this is already going to be a long video, apparently. But anyway, the character creation. So there's 2 ways to create a character. There's the quick way, and then there's the real way. The quick way is go look at the archetypes, pick which one you want, whether you want to play a grunt or a mechanic or whatever. Just go grab that, and then pick the skills that are listed there. You got to pick one of them to be your top skill. And then you're just gonna assign your stats and your skills. You're gonna go. Your stats they all start at C. You have 3 points to bump up or down, or well, bump up, and then you can bump down to get an additional bump up if you want. So you can go like bump 1 up to A. That's only 2 points, and then another one up to B. So you could have A, B, C, C, or you can jump 1 down to D. So you could have A, B, C, D, and then you'd have an additional. So you could be like A, B, B, D, right? That kind of thing. Or you can have like A, C, D, right? That kind of stuff. So it's like you can assign your stats the way that they are, and then, that would obviously correspond to the die you get to roll for that. And then assign your skills with 1B, 2Cs, and 3Ds. And then pick one sort of specialty that your character is going to have based on that archetype, and then add all that gear that we tell you you've got, and move on. It does have a thing about choosing, you have to figure out what your character's like moral code is and what their big dream is. That's the role-playing stuff, and then their appearance. But that's all like after the fact. Like you just kind of, that's the creation. It took me like 7 minutes to create a character with the quick method, and only because I was spending time trying to find the gear and writing it down. Otherwise, it would have only taken me like 3 minutes to make the character, if that. And then there's the real method, which is actually super fun, and it can take as long as you want it to. But it's essentially based on some levels of chance. And what you do there is you do the life path method. So first off, you start off with your stats being what they are. You go like, okay, they're all C's, and then you're going to go ahead and bump them up based on 2d6 roll. And the 2d3 roll, sorry, not 2d6, 2d3 roll. So you're going to do 2d3 or 1d6, same business, either way. But it's a little bit variable. And you're going to just add those numbers up, whatever the 2d3 roll is, and that's how many bumps you get. And so I lucked out, and I got a 5 and a 6, which means that I got to bump my things up 6 times. So my stats started off, instead of being like the quick start where I had A, B, B, D, This time I had AABB. Like my stats were way better during the actual creation method in the very beginning. And then you pick what the childhood was like for the character, which gives you a special ability, a specialty, and then a couple of skills that you get to jump to. They start at D or whatever, and you get to jump them up to C if you want. You have 2 skills or 1 up twice, right, and that kind of thing. And then it goes, cool. Now pick your path, and like you can be like a civilian who was like a police officer, all these different things. There's this stuff, or you were in the military, and then it's like there's these branches of the military, and some of them, because I was going to make a special ops guy, say you can't just start with this one. You have to actually do the combat arms one first, and then you can jump over here. And so it's like cool. So I do that, and it's like here's your skills. So these pick of these 2 of them to go from D to C, or 1 of them to go from D to B, right? And I was like, cool. And then this is the coolest part. Then you try to roll to see if you got promoted, right? If one of your stats got knocked down because of something that happened, potentially, and how older you got, so a couple more years to your life, and then the last part is if war were declared, right? Like did they declare war at this time? If not, pick another path. And so you continue to like go through and just keep picking paths until inevitably the dice will roll a certain point to tell you that war was declared. And that roll is that you roll the D8, and if it's underneath your life path, wherever you are, if the number is underneath however many times of life path selections you've got to make, then war was declared. And so it's really cool because eventually you'll get to like 8, right? And you know that you're going to roll, and it's going to automatically declare war because you're on 8 now. So there's a certain point in which your character gets cut off from being able to gain new stuff. Well, I got 3 in before war were declared, so my character went from combat arms to special ops, and he had two terms as special ops person. So I have all these cool special abilities and stats that went with that. Because then war was declared, and then you pick 2 more stats to give like quick bump ups. No, you can't do double ones, and you just get to pick 2 to bump up, and then you pick 1 special ability to get in that's related to like yourself. So I ended up with 3 special abilities. And my stats or my skills were higher than the quick start method. And so I was like, this character is way better. So the actual creation method is way more beneficial. Now, it could be worse, but it was definitely going to be more beneficial because on average, 2d3 is going to turn you out with 4 bumps. So automatically, your character is probably going to be slightly better off than doing the quick start method. But anyway, that's the way you make characters. That was super fun because it was like I got promoted, the character got promoted, and I was like getting into it. I'm like, oh yeah, he got promoted, so now he's a staff sergeant. He already got promoted once because I became special ops, which automatically gives you a promotion, which means you get new special ability and like these kinds of things. And so it was fun and cool. And I had a good time just doing that. And I actually did it a couple of times just to have fun. And all of the times I did it were super cool. But this is the character I made. Tick. This is the character I made. And you can see that I get to roll like D12s or D10s with my stats. So I'm probably going to succeed more often than I fail at basically everything. And then I got like Bs and Cs in most of my things. I have a D in survival and a D in command. Which sucks, but I have a C or B in everything else, right, for the stats or the skills. So I'm going to be rolling like D12s and D8s pretty much. D8 to D12 for pretty much everything. So I'm probably going to succeed in most things that I do. So, that's cool. All right, so let's briefly cover the crafting system. The crafting system they have in this game is kind of similar to the crafting system in Maximum Apocalypse. You basically take when you want to repair something that's broken, you take a spare part, which you've scrounged is what they call it, from things in the area. Now they are specific, this is the step that I didn't want to go with Maximum Apocalypse, but they did go there. The spare part is specific, so an electronic spare part does electronic stuff, a vehicle spare part does vehicle stuff, a weapon spare part does weapon stuff, a general can be used for anything, so that kind of stuff. So basically their general spare part is what Maximum Apocalypse component pieces are. But essentially, you take the spare part, and then you go ahead and make a tech roll, and if you succeed in the tech roll, then you repaired the thing, whatever it is, based on the reliability, and you give it a reliability number, which is essentially its hit points related to however many successes you got. So if you got just 1 6, or 1 6 or above, then it's just a reliability of 1, so you get this jury-rigged sort of half-assed baseball bat or something like that. But if you got more, then it goes more, obviously, up to the maximum of the thing. So, like, if the thing only has a reliability in its crafted new form as 3, you can't go above 3, right? That's the jury rigging method. And then they have a construction method where you actually make, like, real things. But that method is, like, the tech roll is actually bumped down by 2, so it's 2 dice less than whatever dice you would use. And it takes, like, a lot longer, and it takes more spare parts. And I thought it was really weird that the construction method where you make actually, like, really nice things is, like, harder to do, which, I mean, that makes sense. But, like, the stuff starts off at a reliability 2 less than its max number, and then it bumps up by your successes. And it sort of felt like it should have been the other way around. It sort of felt like, to me, that the jury rigging method should be, like you end up spending, it's harder for you to do, and you spend more spare parts trying to do it. And because, like, the reliability of, like, a baseball bat is 5, and a reliability of a Sherman tank is 5. So based on the you know, jury rigging method, in theory, I could make either one on the fly for the same skill level, and it seemed weird to me. So I would, like, if I were running this game, I would like a house rule and just, like, swap those. Better house rule is I would just use the maximum apocalypse system of, like, you know, degrees of success kind of feel, but with, like, the successes from these, and use, like, a number of component pieces rather than, like, one spare part fixes a thing. And if so by the way, that's building it from, if it's broken. If it's not broken, you can increase its reliability if it's, like, kind of shaky by just making the tech roll. You don't need any spare parts, which is odd to me, but that's fine, whatever. But then, like I said, you scrounge stuff, so you basically scavenge it. You scrounge stuff from things around you, and you basically make a survival skill roll. If you're like, I'm going to go scrounging, you make a survival skill roll, and supposing that you succeed, you get any kind of success, you will make a D100 roll, and then there's this table with, like, a big list of convoluted things that you could find. Some of them are useful, some of them are just complete junk, and then some of them are basically stuff that you're going to break down into component pieces. And not all, and they're spare parts, break down into spare parts. Not all of the things that break down into spare parts are useless, but not all of the useless things break down into spare parts. So it's like, I could find socks, which don't break down into anything. So I just have socks, which I guess is fine. That kind of thing. But then they also have foraging, which, you know, so they have foraging and hunting and scrounging, which is basically the same as foraging, hunting, and scavenging, like a Maximum Apocalypse. I'm not saying they stole it, I'm just saying it's similar in system. So if you're familiar with my game, you'll be familiar with what I'm talking about here. So you foraging, and that's just, you basically make a survival skill roll on to see if you find any food or water. The same thing as foraging in Maximum Apocalypse, you find, you know, food or water. If you succeed, or if you ever try to scavenge or forage in the same area that you foraged before, the die goes down 1 step, and so, you know, it just keeps going down. Much like Maximum Apocalypse, degree of success gets, the required successes get harder, so it gets harder and harder for you to find stuff. Same situation here till eventually you have no dice and you have to move on. Sounds vaguely familiar, but it's exactly the same thing. And then hunting is a little bit complicated in their system. It's really kind of convoluted. It's 3 rolls, which is for one hunt thing, and you might be able to hunt many things, so it's a bit weird. But you make a survival roll to see if you can even find evidence of there being animal life near you, and for every success you get, success you get on the hits you get on those rolls, determines that you found another thing that you can hunt in that area, so that you might get up to 4 because that's the maximum number. Then you make a recon roll to see if you can sneak up on that thing and not get it to notice you. So recon is essentially their stealth in this game. You make a recon roll to see if you can get close enough to that target, and then you're going to either try to range combat to shoot it, like a hunter would, or you're going to make a survival roll to see if you can set up a trap and catch it, right? And then you can catch it. And once you have shot it or caught it, and you've killed it, because when you shoot it, you have to kill it. If you don't kill it, then it runs away and you don't get it. So you have to kill it. So you killed it with whatever thing you did, then you get to harvest its food, right? It's ration about. And, like, I think I can't remember exactly how it works, but anyway, you get the food from it, right? It's like a thing. So that's how hunting works in this game. So that's everything I have to say about this game. It is pretty cool, and it is a good system. I think it's workable. I think that the character creation is the funnest part about this game, and I think that when you play it out, I think the way that they've done the combat systems and the way that they've done all the dice roll is actually really smooth and really simple for people. Like I said, you've got these random encounters, so when you're moving around on your hexes, you know, you can, because the game is just a bunch of hex moving, when you're rolling around in your hexes and you don't have anything planned for the people, you can just go ahead and like throw up one of these encounter cards, and like they run into a bunch of mercenaries or something, right? Or in this case, Soviet soldiers who are willing to buy them off. Initiative is just a card. That's why it's an initiative card. You just do a card, and you can use a deck of cards if you want to. There's no dice rolling on your initiative. It's just a card to figure out who goes first. And then like I said, when you got combat, you shoot at stuff. I forgot to mention the ammo die. So the ammo die, if it rolls a, you know, blankety blank here, that means you ran out of ammo. You need to reload. Or if you roll, unfortunately, if you roll like I think 2 of them or something. If you push it, if you push it and you roll it again, which pushing is a thing, you can try to re-roll a thing if you failed, but it's like worse things happen if you do it. If you get another one of these, then your gun is like jammed, and you're gonna spend time fixing it. But that's how it goes. And then this one means if you get on the ammo die, if you get the actual like bullet, the 6, then you hit a second target and you get to do more damage. You get to basically double your damage or triple your damage. However many dice you spent on the like shot, which is based on the rate of fire. Like you can't fire a single shot weapon multiple times, but you can fire like an M16 like 3 shots or 6 shots depending on which version of the M16 you have. So you can roll more dice, and if you get those, that's additional base damage. So you can potentially flat kill something in like 1 like shot, right? Because you got a bunch of those. So anyway, I give it 2 thumbs up. I look forward to trying to play it, but like I said, I got to find some special friends to make it happen. I think it would run smoothly. I just think that the problem is that this game isn't really, like, there is like growth of your character and development of your character, but I feel like because of its nature and because of it being a hex crawl, unless you have like friends who want to just play an open-ended sort of roll around, fight Soviets whenever they pop up kind of game, you're probably only going to play this like a couple of game sessions in a row, like a short campaign, maybe 6 sessions, that kind of thing. I think that's what this is designed for. But otherwise, I give it 2 thumbs up because I am super into it, and I really like the character creation. And it's really worth it. Like, it's only, I backed on Kickstarter. I think I paid like $40 or $50 for it. I think it's only like $40 or $50 for this box set, and it's totally worth it. For no other reason than the dice and the encounter cards, because the encounter cards are just cool. Right, but you need this like random hit location. But it's in the book. If you don't have the random hit location die, there's a book chart that you can use to like determine where you hit to. So that's it. That's it for me. That's it. This whole video. This is one of my longest, and it's a game that I don't even have a lot of experience with. But I just thought it was cool, and I thought it was a great update to the old system. So if you're a fan of the old system and you like the newer styles of games where things are a little bit freer and easier to understand, this is great. If you want to get your kids involved in it, for example, if you're an old Twilight 2000 fan and you want to get your nephews or your friends, kids, or whomever involved, this is the way to do it, right? This will be your version. So, okay, that's it for me. I'll talk to you guys later. I got to get my end screen up and then transition.